at the UK. Today we will have a very interesting presentation. I've been briefed a little bit by Edona what this research entails, and I found it very interesting. We will have a presentation by Lume, Kadriu, who is with the Institute of Albanian Studies and Ethnology, department at the University of Pristina. She has done a research with restaurants in Pristina, I believe, and to try to really see the connection or interrelation between the cosmopolitanism and the traditional restaurants in Pristina. So if you look at it in a simple way, I think we're going to find out how is Tarba El Bassani from Tipton is related with Chateaubriand or some other specialty. You know that we have a very large international presence, especially here in Pristina, that of course have had some kind of effect, also in the restaurant sector. You know, because every restaurateur that wants to open a restaurant wants to meet the client's needs. But this and a lot of other things we'll learn more from Lume, and without really going too long in my presentation, because we have a lot of presentations this week, I will give the floor to Lume and we will find out what she learned on her research. Lume?
I am Lume Kadriu. But here they use my short name or the version I usually people call me with, Lume. And I'm glad for it because I feel more familiar with all of you. And so today's topic is about locality in the context of cosmopolitanism. We are all aware that actually human societies are very complex and they are becoming even more and more complex by each day. Sorry for this technique, I'm not very skillful in this. And actually, they are becoming more and more complex. So social sciences, as are, for example, also ethnology and social or cultural anthropology, are making different attempts to make it more clear and to understand better social societies. Thus, they try to explain phenomena people are involved in, and usually they do it by using different notions or ideas. And these notions very often seem very controversial or exclusive from each other. But by passing the time, we see that actually those binary notions are becoming more closer to each other. And some of these notions we usually encounter in our readings are, like for example, modernity and tradition, urban and rural, universal and particular, and as we have in this week, homogeneous or cultural diversity, which seems very opposite, and of course, locality and cosmopolitanism. What do we mean with cosmopolitanism? With cosmopolitanism, we're involved and curious on different sciences since the antiquity. And in general, that means a feeling of people as world citizens. Those people have a cultural predisposition, which is not connected to immediate locality, but actually they have a predisposition to feel as global citizens with global belonging, involvement, and responsibility. And all these, they are able to integrate into their everyday practices. Even though it sounds very, very comprehensive and positive, that broad notion and definition, actually by different theorists it was observed as quite elitist and not so positive, since it is able to be practiced and to be cultivated only by a small group of people, minor group of people, who actually can and are able to cultivate this skill because of their socio-economic opportunities they have. However, on the other hand, we have another notion which seems to be quite opposite of cosmopolitanism, locality. By locality we mean a certain place, a place inhabited with a certain group of people who usually have particular values, worldviews, a certain organization, and all these they share, like behaviors, beliefs, etc., which have to deal with culture. And that makes them feel as same, as unique, as someone who has something in common. And but usually the locality and people who inhabit this locality are smaller group of a larger or bigger group, like for example nation or ethnicity, etc. Well, ethnology is interested and has in its focus different researchings, and mostly of them have to do with different identities, like cultural identity, subcultural identity, national identity, ethnic identity. But actually, in all these, locality has a particular place and a significant place, because as European ethnologist Orvar Lövgren from Sweden says, he claims that actually locality continues to be significant for studies because of it is used in cultural constructions as positive and creative processes. As long as we are in processes, a very interesting process which is studied and is very often a topic of social anthropologists and ethnologists is certainly globalization. And globalization, we all know that is characterized mostly by the mobility of people, different kinds of mobilities, like migrants, refugees, and which is of course followed by transnationalism, crossing borders, and then the locality finds a special way and meaning into the process of globalization. And thus, American social anthropologist or cultural anthropologist Arjun Appadurai, he claims that actually in the process of globalization, locality no more remains connected or limited only to the place, but actually it is carried on with people who are mobile, and the ideas they carry on with them wherever they go. And actually, by carrying them with them, they are able also to produce locality. He uses this term, production of locality, and actually he claims that production of locality can be everywhere, wherever we do and practice something which has a local meaning, which is not like personal, only personal, but what we have gained in our small societies. And actually, the process of globalization is the process in which localism and cosmopolitanism has a meeting point. We will see later how. But it's actually connected with mobile people and the process of moving. And since this is have become very obvious, then different authors have come to find more balanced and interpretations regarding these notions who seem at first very, very opposite with each other. Well, I have reflected more on globalism and localism and this kind of issues while I was doing my research for master thesis, which had to do about local elements and global elements found or reflected into the so-called ethnic restaurants. We know, you have all probably noticed that after the war we have more and more so-called ethnic restaurants, which actually are not quite ethnic, since they're beside the serving of so-called ethnic food, which we are never sure which are genuinely ethnic, which are constructed, etc., etc. But actually, in each of them, they offer other foods from other national cuisines like Italian, French, etc. And then, besides the food itself, which is restaurant characterized, we have a decor of these particular restaurants. They usually use local elements, regional with national meaning or regional meaning, in order to make that atmosphere of the past, of the old, and of the cultural background. But in each of them are integrated also works of high arts and even elements who are very, very modern, like chairs, tables, paintings. You can see there very modern TV showing news or something. So they are global and modern elements present in these ethnic, so-called ethnic restaurants. But actually, I have interviewed different visitors, and they are very liked and visited by many people, by locals, internationals, and of course during summer months by diaspora. And the theorist Ulf Hannes actually says and claims that tourist diaspora and working immigrants are not counted as cosmopolitans. So how can we connect this with restaurants then? For him, cosmopolitanism is first of all a willingness to engage with other. It is intellectual and aesthetic stance of openness toward different divergent cultural experiences, a search for contrast rather than uniformity. So this is his main definition about cosmopolitanism. But this definition and this theorist had, of course, some criticizing, as do all theorists. And then came after him two other theorists, Ulf and Hannes, who democratized, sorry for this expression, I couldn't maybe pronounce it good, but he democratizes a little bit this definition. And even though it is very similar, and for him, for them, actually cosmopolitanism is a stand of openness toward divergent experience from different national culture. It is also a search for and a delight in contrasts between societies, rather a longing for uniformity or superiority. So it is a little bit of difference between these notions, but it has quite meaning because it is not something given, but it is also a search and a delight for something different. And beside that, they add in the numerous other arguments that actually in the very act of consumption of places as cultural commodities, and we know that tourists usually in some way want to consume places as commodities also. And in this skill, then in this act, actually we develop cultural skills, attitudes, and maybe the ethics of the cosmopolitanism. And of course, cosmopolitanism has been analyzed in different ways by different authors, and by time they add something which is valuable to this notion or to this understanding of there are lots of authors actually who say that it is impossible to depart totally from the locality we come from. No matter how much we can be distanced from that, we cannot depart at all. Thus, author John Thomson, in his book Globalization and Culture, he says that actually cosmopolitan is not an ideal type to be opposed to the local. Actually, the cosmopolitan is one who can live in ideal way in both of this, in locality and